Hello, I'm Toycat, and as long-term fans of the channel will know, I've been playing this same survival world for thousands of hours now across dozens of updates on 3 separate platforms, and as a direct result of those facts, some of those things haven't directly worked with each other, and they've created very visually intriguing results. Visually intriguing results that people have had a lot of questions about, and it's funny because I figured there'd be more questions about the weird cut-off in terrain and the missing third of an ocean monument that recently appeared. However, no, one of the biggest questions I've had in recent videos, one of the biggest responses has been about this piece of bedrock right here. As we all do know, there's bedrock at the bottom of the Minecraft world, and as you might know, there's bedrock in the ceiling of the Nether as well. But why is there bedrock here at layer 85? Is there some weird magic you've been pulling, Toycat? How did you get the bedrock over here? And if you look closer, you might spot there's even more bedrock around here. That's something I wanted to explain in today's video because of all the questions about it and other weird things that are slightly broken in my Minecraft world. So here is the explanation of everything that's broken and why. And I guess we'll go in chronological order, but because I don't want to leave you hanging too long, why is there bedrock right here in the side? And it's to do with the fact that in the Xbox 360 and Xbox One versions of Minecraft, the editions I should say, the Nether is actually limited. So the Xbox 360 edition and the Xbox One edition of Minecraft both had limited size Nethers, and because they had limited size Nethers in terms of their X and Z coordinates, they had to cut off the Nether in those directions in some way, and they decided on a bedrock wall, basically making it a bedrock cube all the way around the sides of the Nether. And when you converted a world from the Xbox One edition to bedrock, funnily enough, one of the glitches in the bedrock conversion process was that it didn't remove all of the bedrock. It removed a lot of the bedrock and replaced some of it with netherrack, but it doesn't remove all of it, and that means that on all of the sides of my Nether, not just on this one, although it's most noticeable here because I removed the block before it, there are some places where you can find bedrock. Again, this doesn't happen to everyone's world. It doesn't even happen anymore, I don't think. It's just when you broke blocks way too close to the edge of the world, and one of the reasons that we can spot that I did is because of the fact that I dug this huge trench here, specifically because I wanted to see the trench between my old Nether. This is what my Nether was like until 2017, I want to say. This was the entire size I had, whereas anything after this point was generated after 2017. So yeah, there is the old Nether generation from before that point. There's the after Nether generation. So you'll spot there's a giant line, but people might think I just dug that. But the bedrock is the biggest sign that, like, yeah, something weird happened here, and this was the edge of the Nether. If you're curious, by the way, as to why the Nether was so small, because 316 used to be the limit of the Nether, it's because obviously the Nether had to scale to the overworld, and the overworld was only 5,000 by 5,000 blocks on my old thing, and therefore that happens. So yeah, we got the bedrock question right out the way. I don't like to clickbait you and leave that one till later, but we are going to move on to the other big questions that people have in chronological order. And that's going to start by taking us back to the very opening of this world back in 2012, and it's raining. So, you know what? Chronological order be damned. I've changed my mind right on the spot right now. You know, the video format doesn't need to define me. Now that it's raining, I can show you a really fun fact, because you are probably aware of the fact that in deserts and savanna biomes, it does not rain. I can actually prove that fact right now. As you can see, I'm in a savanna biome, and it's not raining, and it wouldn't be raining if it's a desert. In fact, there's a direct desert over there. You can see the exact same thing's going to be true, because in these super hot biomes, it doesn't rain, because that's how it works in real life. A desert is actually defined as the amount of rain that falls, which is why, fun fact, Antarctica's a desert. But we're not here to tell you about Antarctica. Instead, I'm here to tell you about my desert biome, because this desert biome is broken in the sense that it's a desert in the fact that it's made of sand and sandstone, but you can see, even though it's a desert, it's still raining here just fine. One of the biggest benefits of the desert, the fact that it doesn't rain, is removed from my desert, and that is because of the fact that the world changed around this. A really crazy fact about Minecraft that sounds like it's not true, but it really was just an oversight in the way the game worked, is that when they first added new biomes to the game, instead of keeping your existing biomes and just affecting new chunks, it would affect all your existing chunks too, because the seed, the way the biomes would work is they'd be based on what a newly generated world of that same seed would be. So, for instance, this right here is a desert biome in terms of the blocks, but it's not a desert biome in terms of the appearance. And over here, for example, this was a plains biome, but now it's a swamp based on the fact that they're swamp villagers. You can see a whole bunch of other weird examples where, like, oh yeah, this generated as a, like this right here generated as a plains next to an extreme hills. It's all turned into just one giant swamp, which is cool for getting an interesting color of water. And up here you can see, oh yeah, look how nice this is up here. But also it sucks because all the biomes moved, and it means the biome color doesn't match up with the rest of the world. Visually, very interesting, but it's broken and it's something worth mentioning. But yeah, we'll go back into the very first change or first problem in this world. Because even before the biome started shifting around in really weird ways that left me with strangely colored grass in places it shouldn't be, we had issues with the world generator, you know, kind of changing before, you know, when I loaded up a chunk and when I loaded it up afterwards, because they made very slight changes to the world generation algorithm midway through. And one of the weirdest ones to me that I've still never been able to quite explain is the fact that this village right here has a house which is just kind of cut in two. Is that a glitch of this one particular seed? Is that a glitch of this world? I never really found out because it wasn't repeated, but it's something you see all the way across this village. Half the house is just at a different altitude to the rest of the house, and yeah, why is that the case here? You can see it up there too. I don't really know, but it's something that did affect my village in very, very strange ways. It's just always been like this, and in case you're curious, this village has no villagers because it existed before villagers existed. Fun fact, they added NPC villagers to the game before the villagers, which is kind of weird now that villagers are such an essential part of Minecraft, but it was a thing they decided to do. Relatedly, and this one is much, much easier to see, you can see how I generated most of my world in the first update that was available when the game came out. It's called TU5, it was based on 1.8 beta, so we're talking about like an 8-year-old version of Minecraft or something when we're talking about Java. So with super world world generation is when I generated most of this world, but then they updated it a little bit afterwards to make snow biomes a bit more common, which is why I ended up with this very weird situation where the old chunks were going to be ocean, but then they updated it and made it so snow biomes could generate instead. So I got a snow biome, but it started up at the chunk boundary. And you can tell that by the fact that there's this perfectly straight line between what should be frozen ocean and what then later turned out to be a kind of taiga biome. So this is a really cool snowy taiga. It's a really nice little place, but just to the right of that, you can see how like, oh yeah, there's also meant to be an ocean here. It's really quite stunning to look at, and this is something that is the basis of pretty much every single Minecraft bug. Update number 1 generates one set of terrain, update number 2 generates enough one, and because Minecraft generates the world by the chunk, you always get very flat lines that let you know that that's happened. I say flat, technically there's some water pouring out from this over to there. That water would otherwise be entirely unfound, by the way, but because it's open, it can pour out. But yeah, otherwise entirely flat because it generates on a chunk boundary. Yeah, so 368 is the last block of this chunk right here, and 369 is the first block of the next chunk, which is why this looks like that. So fun fact, this is why my world is broken and I have huge ice walls, even in the very core of the world. And you might say, what do I mean by the core of the world? And again, if you're a long-term fan, you'll know exactly what I mean by that, but there's a very interesting gap between 400 blocks in every direction of spawn, or of origin I should say, not really of spawn, but there's a weird gap between 400 blocks off 0, and the edge of the world. And excluding my wall that I built here because I want to keep the new Minecraft out, you'll notice how there's this giant water gap in every direction all the way around the world. It makes a perfect square around my world, in fact, and you might say, why is this? Why is there this perfect, like kind of 8-block wide gap of water? Why is that the case, Toycat? And the simple answer is because Xbox 360 edition had a limited size world that was 800 by 800 or 864 by 864. So at 432 blocks, i.e. right over here, this was the edge of the Minecraft world. You can see how it's even different colored water because these are very, very old chunks from 2012, whereas what's next to that are chunks from 2014, which of course generated very differently. And the reason that they generated like this, there's actually a setting you could have clicked to make it a really smooth transition, to make it so you wouldn't even notice the barrier. However, I decided not to use that setting because the downside to that is you would lose anything anything that was placed in the chunk just before. Basically, the new generation would go a chunk into the old generation and it'd kind of meet it halfway, so you wouldn't get the lines like I showed you earlier. Or even worse, like the lines over here, where again, you can see it happens at a direct chunk boundary. It's a little bit ugly, some people might say. I think most people. I think it's got an interesting appeal to it because I like these sort of interesting bugs, but maybe you don't. Maybe you say, why is this a thing, Toycat? And the simple explanation is because, again, the old 360 side world was 864 by 864, and the newer size worlds were much bigger, 5000 by 5000, so the gap between them was made much bigger. But the funny thing is, this isn't the only time this happens. There's, again, this huge ocean trench between 400 blocks out and 432 blocks out, but it's funny because this happens not just here, but also right here at 1500 blocks. This is because my world has not expanded just twice, but it's actually expanded thrice. Even though the Xbox One edition size world maximum was 5000 by 5000, I actually immediately chose, in 2014, to expand it to, the medium size world, or 3000 by 3000, figuring like after 800 by 800, 3000 by 3000 was such a huge size difference, and obviously, eventually I changed my mind on that one, but it meant that I could have all of this generate in the 2014 terrain, and all of this afterwards could generate in 2015 terrain, which meant I could get fossils. There was a brand new structure I think I could get also. I think it was the Woodland Mansion that I could only find after that chunk barrier. Basically, there were brand new things that I could only find if I generated new chunks, and the easiest way to guarantee that I would have new chunks to generate when you have so few is to make sure I had the world set to medium. So right here you can see at this barrier right here that there is in fact just this huge gap in the world where medium meets just after medium. And it has a similar effect, although much less noticeable than before. Also, I didn't build a wall because I didn't need to keep the new world out, so that's a big part of it. But yeah, you can see one of the most interesting things to me is that there's big walls of just like, this is what used to be the edge of the world, and then this is the bit just past it. It's kind of old school now, but yeah, like I said, there was 4 expansions of the world. Rather than boring you and saying, hey, did you know I did that again? I'll just show you a map on screen right now. So for the first couple years, the world was 864 by 864. Then for the next, year or so after that, it was 3000 by 3000. Then for the next, a couple years after that, it was 5120 by 5120. And now, because of the switch to Bedrock that happened in 2017, it is now infinite by infinite blocks. Hopefully that diagram makes sense. And yeah, because of that, basically the further out I go from my spawn or from my origin, the newer the terrain gets, or the more recent the terrain gets, not necessarily always newer, which results in some very interesting things about midway through when, say, 2014 terrain meets 2015 terrain, when, say, 2015 terrain meets 2017 terrain, and it's very, very fascinating. I have, however, never found a fossil out in the wild, so that's one of the reasons I actually expanded the world. Never found one, very sad. But yeah, here's the big grand event. One of the big things that people asked questions about was like, so why do you have an ocean monument that's just kind of half visible? And yeah, the long story short on this one is this was as far as the chunks are generated prior to 2015, and then when the world was expanded and I came here afterwards, new chunks loaded in, and those new chunks included most of, but not all of, an ocean monument. So the ocean monument kind of blended into the old chunks, and we resulted in this situation right here. Very interesting, right? At least I think it's very interesting. It was also very useful for that 1,000 sponge project. Like, again, you have no idea how long it took to find all those sponges, and having an ocean monument, even if only 2/3 of one, that's still enough to mean you get all the sponges. So yeah, I would say having 2/3 of an ocean monument might seem like it's a big downer, but honestly, it's just as good. It maybe is even better. So in case you look at all of these examples and you say like, okay, this is really cool. I understand why your world is broken in the way that it is, and maybe it's answered your questions in that way. Sorry, just now as I was saying that, I spotted an ocean monument that I've never found before. Like, would have been really handy during that 1,000 sponge quest. But side note over, you might now say like, okay, well this is really cool. I now know a lot of stuff that I didn't know before, but realistically I was never playing console. These things don't affect me. What way can this actually help me? Like, okay, your world's broken because you've moved it so many times and it's like 700 megabytes, but realistically this only happens to you and the console edition players, right? But no, this can happen to anyone at any time in any update, and although it's much less severe these days, it can still happen in very, very strange ways. A great point in case for that, I actually found when I looked for a pillager outpost. Here is a pillager outpost, or rather, here is no pillager outpost. What happened here is, for some reason, the chunks where the pillager outpost was meant to generate did not generate because, again, the update, I'd actually explored these chunks in the previous update. However, the things next to it had generated instead. So this is where I generated chunks with no pillager outpost, and it just so happened the pillager outpost was in chunks I had explored, but then the chunks I hadn't explored contained the outer parts of it. And that might sound like a lot of stuff, but basically, imagine this. If you explore all the way up to a chunk boundary, which you always will, you've never explored your entire world, you explore that any particular update. Then when the next update changes something, and every update's going to change something, whether it's strongholds, whether it's caves, whether it's villages, everything always gets changed slightly, which means that the new generation doesn't know what the old generation's done. It assumes it's the same, and you sometimes get things like this. It's a village which is generated only the very edge of it. There's a barrel and there's the sides of a village, but nothing else, because it assumes the rest of the village is here, but it can't really be too sure. So yeah, we have half a village and we have half a pillager outpost, but not the useful part of the pillager outpost and not the useful part of the village. And yeah, you might think those things are cool, but if you don't think that sort of thing is interesting and cool, just bear in mind it's a side effect of natural updates. Caves from old updates won't interact with caves after the cave update, we all know is happening. Villages from before the village update won't interact well with the villages from afterwards, and so on and so forth. When they change the location, the structure, and everything else like that to do with something, you're going to get some weird outliers. Like this right here. As you can see, here is the world from before they changed ravine placements, and here's the world from a very different ravine generation in Bedrock. As you can see, half a ravine leading in some water. Because the water chunks have never been interacted with, they won't start flowing yet, and it means that you have flowing water going all the way down, ouch, here. Very interesting to see, right? Stunning, interesting to me at least, maybe interesting to you. That's your kind of opinion on that one. Also, there was an ocean monument over there too. I went thousands of blocks, 11,000 blocks or something, and there were ocean monuments near me this whole time. If you explore your world enough, you're going to start spotting this in all sorts of weird places, and this is generally why they don't change terrain generation between updates, because all of the new terrain is going to generate in a very bizarre way for your old one, in a way that to most people looks like a glitch. Again, I find this fascinating, but a lot of people would find this ugly and would be upset by it, so they generally don't change terrain in such huge ways, besides at very key points in Minecraft's history, i.e., 1.7, the update that changed the world, in like 2013 was the last time they really gave it a big go, because they don't want situations like this to be commonplace in everyone's world. And if you don't want that to be commonplace, then, I don't know, generate the chunks now. But I actually recommend the opposite. I recommend leaving as many chunks ungenerated as possible, so when they change ocean monuments or villages or wooden mansions, in the same way we got mountain when that was new, or a different mountain than we should have, in the same way you get jarring things like this, you could end up with an ocean monument really close to spawn, or a brand new village really close to spawn, or whatever you may want. So keep in mind it's a double-edged sword. But yeah, basically, when you take something new and you add it to something old, you're going to get the jarring gap between those two things. It's interesting because, like, I guess the human equivalent of this would be, like, you change every single day of your life, and the changes are, like, quite subtle, every day by day, but they're pretty, striking when you notice them over time. The concept of you really isn't a concept of you. It's lots of different parts of you, sewn together. If 5-year-old you and 25-year-old you tried to have a conversation, it wouldn't go very far. Same thing with, like, if 80-year-old me came back to the past to speak to me, it's a common thing of, like, what advice would you ask him? He'd be like, oh, this guy, you're such an idiot, man. Don't do this, this, that. And I'd say, screw you, man. I'll do it anyway. And yeah, my point is that you're not really the same person as time goes on. You're lots of different people wearing a trench coat. And in the same way, my Minecraft world, and any Minecraft world that's lasted this long, is going to have that same effect. And it's lasted in the Nether, it's lasted in the overworld, like I've showed you so far, but it also goes into the end. So here's my stronghold. I hollowed out the ceiling. Entirely recommend doing that, by the way. But let me show you the end, because ignore the changes I've made to the end itself, and yes, I know you might like those or dislike those. Again, people are very mixed on their reactions to this. However, something you will notice is I have far too many end towers, and also some of the end towers are far too close together. This is because, again, old end generation, new end generation, they just kind of overlapped with each other, which means I now have lots of towers combined in ways they shouldn't be, and also I have random floating obsidian that, again, should be removed. There shouldn't be any of these floating obsidian. In fact, I think, oh, yeah, the reason it's there is because I mined out the entire pillar below it. But yeah, there was just lots of obsidian pillars here, which has left some bedrock floating in the air where it shouldn't be one more time. Again, bedrock is the weirdest thing to find because unlike every other block where you could place it that way, even though you wouldn't want to, you could. Whenever bedrock gets moved around that way, that's where you notice it the hardest, that's where you can notice the glitches the hardest, and that's why I not only have bedrock in the Nether, but I have it here in the end. Similarly, the size of the end was actually capped in Minecraft console, so when the new end generation from the same seed on Bedrock came in, the end was allowed to be wider. However, there's a big gap between how the end should generate and then how it extra generated. I'm actually going to destroy this entire thing sometime. It's a big project I've been working on, but I'm not here to talk about my projects. I'm just here to mention that's another kind of funny thing. Another super strange thing to look at is if we fly through this portal right here, we nailed it, and go to my end city. This end city generated back in the console days, which means that one, it's way further away. Like I've got an end portal that takes me to 2,000 blocks away. That's not normal, first of all. If you look on the top left, that's my coordinates. Again, Bedrock feature, 99% of you are aware of that, but just in case you're not, there are the coordinates in the top left, proving that we are in fact 2,000 blocks away from spawn. So having a portal which is this far away is super handy. But then there's another thing you'll notice, which is that we're surrounded with really weird gaps between us and the surrounding, end stone, and that's because the way the end cities used to generate is on isolated little islands, just like this. However, again, Bedrock has infinite ends, just like Java, which means there's a limited size end interacting with the infinite end in a really weird kind of right-angular way right here. It's really, really, really strange to look at, in my opinion. I actually built the stone slabs around my, the edge of my end, just because I was curious about how they would convert over, and they converted over fine, in case you're curious. I wasn't expecting that perfectly work like that. And then I also placed, just because again, I wanted to see what would happen to it, a big, wooden branch pathway which looks something a bit like that. Birch slab to be precise. And yeah, this shows what used to be the very last block of the old end, and over here you can see what is now the new end. Again, two things that are entirely separate, they're sewn together, and they're effectively one thing. There is only one Minecraft survival world, but the one survival world consists of lots of different worlds with different, things that generated, or, in the case of you, different perspectives over time. So yeah, it's an interesting thing that you're going to go through if you have a long-term survival world, and I hope this video helps you in that way. If you do intend on playing survival in one world for a long time, then we have something in common. Maybe you'll find the rest of the videos on this channel interesting, because the big thing I focus on, one of the biggest things on this channel is this big survival world. That's the way I like playing Minecraft, and I like that so many of you enjoy watching the videos where we basically do that, and I discuss the challenges and help you out in that guide. If you are not subscribed to the channel, I would ask that you do so if you want to see more of these videos. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you did all enjoy it. Just a reminder right now that this whole world, if you want to see it for yourself, it will be available on the marketplace, sometime soon in the next few weeks. So that's an exciting thing to look forward to. Also, when this world turns 7, I will be doing a full world tour. So in case you don't want to download it yourself or check it out that way, I'm going to do a full world tour of every single thing in this world for the 7-year anniversary. Oh dear God, what just happened? And I didn't stop recording, but like an Ender Dragon just spawned right there. This is meant to be the end of the video. I shouldn't have to fight an Ender Dragon. You're gonna ruin my day, you are. You're gonna ruin everything about my day. I don't like this at all. You're ruining my end. So yeah, the reason I don't want an Ender Dragon spawning is because when an Ender Dragon spawns, we obviously end up with a situation of all this glass being destroyed. Stop destroying my glass, dragon! This took me a long time to place. No, stop it! There's so much glass. Oh my God, so much of my life is being torn asunder by this Ender Dragon. And yeah, pro tip, I guess there's a bug regarding end portal access. Fun fact, I play Bedrock Minecraft, which is probably the best Minecraft in a lot of ways, but not in terms of having your end destroyed by a rogue dragon, I will say. Although having fireworks, stop it, dragon, please. Okay, at least the dragon's dead now. So yeah, I don't know what the end result of this will be besides hopefully a lot of experience. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it's over now. And I guess I'll see you all. Am I not even going to get XP? Oh, I am! Is this like original first time XP? If I go up to like level 60. Oh no, it's like second time XP. It's like I'm refighting the Ender Dragon, not doing it for the first time. Fun fact, you get more experience when you do it the first time. Oh, also, we should have a brand new end gateway to make up for all this glass that I now have to replace. Just in case you're curious, I didn't get a new end gateway. I didn't get a new end gateway at all. All that happened is an Ender Dragon came in and wrecked my stuff. Look how much glass I have to replace now. This was 55,000 in the first place, and it's probably only another 1,000 or so. But I didn't deserve that. But yeah, you can probably watch in my next Let's Play me repairing all the glass from the end. But thank you very much for watching this video, because I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.